Nah, don't listen to me when it comes to retirement planning. Nah, I've only been doing this since 1998. I've only seen the exact same success stories time and time again. It's the exact same thing every single time. Ugh. All right, so let me just read you what I just posted on my community tab. What time is it? 7:41. I gotta cut up my nose. I'm not sure what that's about. So what I do is I do my pre-morning work, if that makes sense. Where I get books everywhere and articles and printouts and everything. And see, I just like to read. Reading is good, and I like to read old stuff from what people were going through before. And I just find it fascinating. And again, another book that I'm going to read here is from, again, this is Carrie Meyer, and I'm going to refer to her in just a second. Letters from the Boys. It just is interesting because this is literally, well, not literally, is it rhetorically or literally? If you're literally reading letters from the past and diaries from the past, you're not literally going back in time. I'm not sure what you call that, but you are going back in time in a way. Anyway, whatever that is, call me Joe Biden. Exponential, that's what Joe Biden, not exponential, exponential, just funny. Anyway, so two things. This is it. You do these things, and you're good. And I'm going to share with you why. It's the same freaking story every single time, and everyone wants a better mousetrap, and there is no better mousetrap. It's so flippin' simple. It drives me up the wall. All right, so here's some of the community posts I just posted. Going back over 100 years and always the same thing. Pay off debt and expenses drop. Shocking, I know. I'm going to paraphrase for a bit, and then I'll quote directly from Carrie Meyer's book, Days on the Family Farm. And just as an FYI, Carrie was a professor of mine when I was at George Mason in economics department, and she was big on environmental economics and Latin American stuff. And I think I minored in Latin American studies. And anyway, a great woman, great lady, and I just love her, man. I consider my friend. I haven't spoken or emailed her for many, many years, but great. And I just love the work she's done, and good stuff. Anyway, so I'm paraphrasing from the book here because there's a lot going on in this paragraph about the paragraph was the glow of the golden age. No, it wasn't the 1920s, by the way. It was pre-World War One. It's amazing. World War One is when the globalists really took over. Rockefeller, Carnegie, and all these guys, J.P. Morgan, were coming up, and they were in huge power. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't until World War One where it got solidified. It's actually just disgusting and sad. Because while those guys are rich and controlling the railroads, controlling the oil, they look, it's just complete cartel. And Teddy Roosevelt didn't trust bust, not in the least. And World War One allowed the solidification of the globalist cabal. It's just sad, man. And yet these guys who were conscripted to go, just freaking disgusting. All right, anyway. So from 1911 to 1914, expenses dropped. Expenses were at 1985. All right. Now remember, this is in that day's numbers, not today's numbers. So we haven't adjusted this for inflation. But gross farm income over those years were 10,000. Or basically, you can figure this out. So 10,000, a little bit more than 10,000, were gross expenses. 2,000, 10,000 was gross income. Expenses were $2,000. So expenses were about 1/5 of income. All right, from 1911 to 1914. However, from 1901 to 1910, expenses were about 1/3 of income. So you hear what I'm saying? So from 1910, let me draw this for you, because if you're like me, you're like, I need a visual because I like visual learning. And so we got expenses from 1910. Oops, hold on just a second. This will make sense. Stay puppies. They're so cute. They're sleeping. Expenses, 1/3 income. All right, so there you go. Expenses, 1901 to 1910, 1/3 income of gross income. 1911 to 1914, expenses dropped to 1/5 of income. What could have possibly caused that, Josh? What could have possibly caused that? Anyone want to take a guess? the same story. Most of the difference relates to the shrinkage of payments to Elmo's mom, the mortgage on the farm. So basically, Elmo, who's our hero, and May, who's our heroine, bought a farm from his parents, and they mortgaged it, and so and obviously they got probably good terms too. But with that said, they still had to pay a mortgage to Elmo's mom, so they paid off the farm. With the farm paid off, and this is a direct quote, by the way, with the farm paid off, net farm savings from the 4 years was about $1,190 more than the $950 for the 10 years previous to that. Are you hearing what I'm saying? With the farm paid off, they saved in 4 years' time $1,190, which is 25% more than they saved in the previous 10 years, amigos. I cannot stress this enough. With the farm paid off, net farm savings for the 4 years from 1911 to 1914 was $1,190, more than the $950 for the 10 years from 1901 to 1910. Fast forward to the Great Depression. The risk of foreclosure was severe but selective. Only those farms that were heavily mortgaged were at risk. I literally don't know what more I can say on this matter. Paying off debt does two things that are the most important in retirement planning. It reduces your expenses and it reduces your risk. Can't go bankrupt if you're not in debt. Now, that does not mean you cannot be indebted in the future because you have no debt today. I grant you, that is true. But the risk of bankruptcy if you have no debt is basically zero unless something catastrophic happens, which is why you buy insurance, by the way. Do you hear what I'm saying? The risk of bankruptcy is zero if you have no debt. All right? Because you go bankrupt, why? Because you borrowed and you can't pay it back. That's what bankruptcy is about. Part two of this is your expenses drop through the floor because you have no debt. You have no cash flow obligations in which to service that debt. So if we go back to the 80%, let's see if, hold on a second, let's see what he says here. This is Jonathan Clements' Money Guide 2016. I'm not the biggest fan of Jonathan Clements. I've knocked him around a couple times since I've been doing this for 5 years. This is actually a great book. This book is absolutely fantastic. It's easy to read. I can't say I agree with the whole thing because I haven't read the whole thing, but it's got a wonderful, wonderful book. It's a great resource, man. And I was pleasantly surprised to hear Jonathan Clements when he talked about in retirement expenses, the 80% rule. So we're going to go back. One rule of thumb suggests that to retire in comfort, you need 80% of your pre-retirement income. And Clements says, why the 20% drop? Because you're no longer saving 10% or so every year towards retirement, and you're no longer paying an employee FICA. In addition, you won't have to buy work clothes or pay commuting costs. Your income tax bill should also go down. All right. It turns out, however, that many retirees are living off far less than 80% of their final salary. For instance, T. Rowe Price in 2014, a survey of relatively affluent recent retirees found that these retirees were, on average, living on 66% of their pre-retirement income, and they reported being quite content. This isn't a huge surprise. For many folks, many folks save more than 10% in the run-up to retirement, so they're already used to living off less than 80%. Exactly. Second, many homeowners aim to get their mortgage paid off by retirement. Yep. Finally, by retirement, the kids are usually through college and the workforce, which also greatly reduces parent spending. Add it all up, and you may find yourself comfortably retiring on 50 to 60% of your final salary, which goes exactly in line with hold on a second, I'll find it. With my man Frederick Vitesse, I don't even know how to pronounce it. The Essential Retirement Guide, a contrarian's perspective. And anyway, so I just want to so reduce expenses, reduce risk with no debt. There's one thing. This one thing will solve your retirement worries. Talking to these folks yesterday, and it's funny because they had I'll do another video on that. All right. Love to hear your thoughts. We'll see ya.